Hello, welcome back to another edition of the I'm Always Right Sports Podcast. I am your host, as always, the mouth of Michigan, Rob Mendyke. And with me, as always, my co-host, the Merkso and Mike Merkel.
I'm here.
He's here. We've got the Whaleman, Kyle Budznowski, and in his full Whaleman attire. He's got the hat, he's got the shirt, he's ready to go for Week 2 of the NFL season. We'll get into that at the end of the show. Guys, we have a lot to go over. We got some Tigers news to go over. We got some NHL Stanley Cup finals to kind of talk about. We've got WWE's Clash of Champions pay-per-view next week. We've got Lions talk. We got Michigan talk. We got NBA conference finals / me going ballistic on your LA Clippers, your favorite team ever. So we got a lot of stuff to go over today, guys. Let's just jump right into it. Let's not waste any more time. The biggest news, I think, coming out of for Detroit fans, Ron Gardenhire retiring pretty much immediately. Walked in one day, he's like, I'm going to go to work. And then he's sitting there at his desk and goes, I don't want to work anymore. So that's pretty much how it happened, quite frankly. You know, he's got some health issues, apparently. I think he's a cancer survivor as well. Gardenhire is, I believe. I think when he was in Arizona as the bench coach, he had some issues. So he's stepping down immediately. Will not be back. Lloyd McClendon, former Pittsburgh Pirates manager, former Seattle Mariners manager, I believe. He was the Toledo Mud Hens, our AAA affiliates manager, I think, for a season as well. You know, he's stepping in to fill the void for the rest of their run for a, I guess, potential playoff run. Kinda. They're kind of in that wild card mix still. Well, at least they were a couple days ago. And then they were like 2 games out, then they lost 3. It's a whole thing. But Mike, I want to start with you here. Gardenhire, retiring. Did you think that he was going to be brought back anyway? Because I had thought that, honestly, they were actually going to bring him back for another year to kind of see this thing through, to hopefully kind of see a little bit of the fruits of his labor for having to reside over a young, inexperienced, bad baseball team with a bad payroll.
Yeah, it's been rough there, so I applaud him for trotting through and sticking it out.
Yeah.
But with this COVID stuff, the health is definitely more important, and this team's not really
they're not there yet.
They're not
sure.
there.
No.
So it's not like this team had a 40-win season about to make the playoffs, and he was like, "Oh, I can't do it." Now, that would kind of sting for the team. But because you're on the verge, in air quotes, of trying to get to the wild card position, but probably
not going to get there.
Realistically, going to get there.
For sure.
Then I think he can kind of. It's an easier departure for him.
Yeah.
Because then the new guy comes in and he's able to take over, work with whatever he has, and then start building his vision.
Right. Yeah.
Or in the offseason you get a new guy and then he
right.
builds his vision.
I don't want to talk necessarily right now new managers. I know a lot of people were flipping out over the possibility of Don Kelly. Remember Don Kelly to come in and coach? And I don't know how I'd feel about that. I couldn't stand him as a player, so I don't know how I'd take him as a manager. Kyle, same question to you, though. You know, Gardenhire stepping down, this season is kind of a wash anyway, right? Even if they somehow backed into a wild card spot, which I don't think they will. What was your instant reaction to him stepping down? And were you upset? Because I personally like Ron Gardenhire. I think he was the perfect guy to hire for this kind of team, a young up and coming team that needed a veteran guy. A longtime guy in baseball who teaches solid fundamentals, who is just a good coach, right? And a good guy, a leader of men kind of thing. And I think he really fit that bill in every aspect. So what were your thoughts when you saw him stepping down? And, where do you think the Tigers go from here?
Well, when I first saw that he was going to be stepping down, I kind of thought of it as trying to be in his shoe, a personal perspective. Yeah. Obviously you try to coach this team, didn't go as he thought. I guess they were pretty bad, and they're still pretty bad.
I think he knew going in, he's we're going to be bad for a while, but I think he didn't really have a time frame necessarily either.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think just personally with all the Corona stuff, with how this team is kind of trending, I feel like this is just kind of, you could either kept on going, but I feel like if you would have kept on going, you kind of would have to take the long route.
Yeah.
And then I think it's better to leave now than keep the long route.
For sure.
For him, at least personally, with age and Corona. And with the team now, I mean, I don't know what they're going to do with their intern coach.
Lloyd McClendon. Yep.
I don't know where that's going to go. I think
they're just going to probably finish the season.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of watch how the season goes and then kind of be able to react from there.
Right. And that's the one thing I will caution Tigers fans about when it comes to hiring a guy maybe who doesn't have a ton of managerial experience. Where this team is at right now, you have a lot of young pieces that you are really going to be counting on for the next couple of years. We've seen a track record over the last couple seasons where guys get kind of brought out of nowhere to be the manager. You look at the Yankees, you look at Boston, you look at some of these teams where like all of a sudden like, okay, Alex Cora, he's the bench coach. He's never been a manager for. Oh, now they're winning the World Series. But those teams were a little bit more ready-made to go. This team is not ready-made to win yet by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't necessarily know if a young up-and-coming guy would be maybe the right decision right away until maybe you're ready to get that hump. You already tried it once with Brad Ausmus with a team that you thought was ready to win, and it was an epic disaster. So I think maybe leaning towards more of a skill set of, I've been there, I've done that, I know how to get a team that is up-and-coming and get them up into a potential place where they're contention, which I think why Gardenhire was brought in the first place. But you're not ready to win yet, so I don't necessarily know if getting a manager who is quote-unquote a young up-and-comer who people like a lot wouldn't necessarily be the right decision here. But I guess we'll find out. Mike, let's jump right in here to the Stanley Cup playoffs next, actually. Let's go to there real quick. We haven't done a ton of hockey talk. We did a little bit when the Wings got, stiffed in the draft, with the COVID stuff. Honestly, we got a really big influx of sports all at the same time, so I do feel like we have neglected the NHL a little bit. That's our bad. But we have the Stanley Cup Stanley Cup Finals, We got the Dallas Stars and Tampa Bay Lightning going at it. If there is anything to tie to the Red Wings here, just real quick before we kind of go through our predictions, Dallas is currently up 1-0, right? They won 4-1 yesterday.
Yes.
If you are a Red Wings fan and looking at what Steve Yzerman could potentially do, now it's been a couple years since he was in Tampa, but this team being in the finals, right, it gives you a little glimmer of hope that this is hopefully where you could wind up being, right? It's like, given enough time, Yzerman has proven that he can build a roster who's ready to compete and get there and get there successfully and get there, and be in contention for a long period of time like Tampa has, right? So that if you have one thing to be somewhat hopeful about with this team, considering right now there's not a lot to be hopeful about, that is it. So with that though, Mike, who do you have in this Stanley Cup Finals? I was rooting for Vegas low key because I always just think it's funny when a new team on the block just like I'm gonna go for Seattle next year.
I'm gonna be a big Seattle Kraken
fan just because. So who do you got in this matchup, knowing already that Dallas is up 1-0?
I'm still gonna take Tampa Bay Lightning to win the series in 6 games.
6 games
against Dallas.
Yeah, I like. What's funny is I'm gonna be honest with you. I can't name any players on Dallas, but the one guy that always sticks out to me for Tampa is Kucherov. Because I remember when they played Tampa, when the Wings played Tampa like 3 years in a row. He just destroyed us every freaking year. Is Tyler Johnson still on this team too?
Yes.
Is he? Yeah. See him too. They would just absolutely, beat the living dog crap out of us for whatever reason. That line would just absolutely ridiculousness. But who is the main contributors for Dallas right now that we should be able to look out for?
So they have let's see what his name is here. I'm pulling up on ESPN right now.
ESPN, right? Kyle, while Mike's doing that, who do you got in this finals, between Dallas and Tampa? This is the first time we've seen Dallas in a marquee spot like this in quite a while.
Well, I haven't paid 1 ounce of attention to NHL or what's been going on. I was kind of a Vegas fan for a little bit when they started off and had that run.
Yeah.
But I'm just taking off these 2 teams. I'm probably going to go with Tampa Bay just because I went to a Tampa Bay versus Detroit game in Tampa Bay a few years ago. And ever since then,
humble brag. He's like, I'm just a savant.
Yeah. So ever since then, I just kind of
there you go. It just ties in together.
So so I'm just gonna go with that.
Yeah.
There you go.
So their leading point getter is Tyler Seguin.
Okay.
He's their center. He's got 50 points, 17 goals, and 33 assists.
There we go.
So he'd be the guy to look out for if you're going to be watching somebody.
Sure.
But obviously, Kucherov, who you brought up, has 33 goals and 52 assists. So if someone's gonna kind of go out on a whim to really lead his team, I think he's gonna be a big reason.
I've also enjoyed the way Tampa plays too. They play so fast. They have great puck control. They're explosive. It's just one of those things to where, obviously it's a little bit of our ignorance of not knowing necessarily how well, Dallas obviously is a very good team, right?
Dallas plays the bend but don't break style of play where they'll let you get in as long as
We
they
can
have
go
a
back,
top tier goalie down
Right.
there. So as long as you're not scoring, you can stay in here as
For
long
sure.
as you want, and then
For
make
sure.
the mistake to go on the attack. But
Right.
that's how they do. And Tampa Bay likes to be on the attack, obviously.
Yes.
So I think those minutes where you're on the attack, they average 3.57 goals per game. So if they can get up to that number, 3 to 4 goals, I think
Right.
that's how they can
Yeah,
win.
right. There, that's kind of your threshold there for
Yeah.
sure. Obviously, we'll kind of be paying attention a little bit there as we get to closer to the draft and all that good stuff as far as your Red Wings are concerned. All right, let's talk Clash of Champions now here for WWE. This is one of the few cards I actually somewhat enjoy. Not this specific card, maybe, but like Clash of Champions, the Vengeance Night of Champions things that they used to do. I really enjoy. I like having the fact that, like, okay, every match I'm going to see is for a title. There's some sort of stakes involved, you know. That always kind of gets me excited, just because it's like one of those things where, like, if nothing else, all right, there's a potential of a title change, which is exciting for me. So that's why I always look forward to this card, because something usually happens in some regard. So let's go through this match card, Mike, real quick, and then we'll go to break, and then we'll go and we'll talk some NBA playoff action / football / me losing it a little bit today.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to figure this first one out. So we're gonna go to a different one because I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
I don't watch every single week because I miss it.
Well, there's so much wrestling. How
yeah.
can you? Honestly?
So I have to figure this out.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start. Ready? So
Yeah.
Kyle, this one's for you. This first one. So we got Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura, who are the champions,
SmackDown Tag Team Champions,
defending against the Lucha House Party of Kalisto, Grand Metalik, and or Lindsay Dorado. Who do you have and why?
Well,
it's not going to be 3 versus 2. It'll be 2 of those guys.
No, it's 2 of those guys.
Okay.
And versus 2. Yeah.
Kyle's like, well, I really like the other man advantage, so.
well, taking into account of the champions that will be going in the ring, I'm going to take them because they do remind me of the future champions, the Los Angeles Lakers. So I'm going to take the champions.
Yeah, you know, you got a Swiss guy and a Japanese guy. It totally makes me think of the Los Angeles Lakers on a lot of time. Sure. Yeah, I'm still going to take the champs here, though. It doesn't make a lot of sense to put it on Lucha House Party, quite frankly.
I will also take the champions for that exact same reason.
Yeah, good lord. Yeah, we'll talk about the Lakers in a little bit. Calm it down, both of you. All right,
All right. So I think I'm figuring. So we got the Street Profits, who are the champions.
Yeah.
And they're taking on Seth Rollins and Murphy, and Andrade and Angel Garza, or Humberto versus Dominic Mysterio. So I'm assuming on Raw they're probably going to have a tag match to determine who's the third person to make it a triple threat Raw tag team match.
Okay. Is it a triple threat? Well, because Murphy and Rollins aren't even, like, together
Well, it
anymore.
says, so in the description, it's the Street Profits versus Seth Rollins and Murphy, Andrade and Angel Garza, or. So I'm assuming that it's
either way.
Setham and then the other team.
I don't understand really why the Raw tag team division is terrible. Let's first off, right?
So I'm taking the Street Profits because
I don't know. Yeah, I don't get it. Putting Mysterio with Humberto Carrillo makes not a lot of sense, in the sense of I think Mysterio's actually been on fire the last couple weeks on Raw. Yeah. They really view him highly, but because his dad's out, that would probably be the time. Or if you're going to give him a tag title, that would be the time, not now. I still like Andrade and Angel Garza. I thought they should have won the titles 2 months ago, but here we are still. So I guess the Street Profits. But if they win this, because I don't think Rollins and Murphy, I don't know what the hell's going on with that. So this doesn't make a lot of. I don't care, I guess, is the hardest part about this one.
Do you have any idea what's
really
going
don't
on?
give a damn. Just say the Street Profits win.
Street Profits, yeah. The other team, they kind of sound like 10-day contract players, so I'm going to take,
Yeah, Andrade has won more international championships than everybody else on that list, but it's fine.
That's cool.
Seth Rollins is a former multi-time world champion, but no, they're all
10-day
10-day contract guys. Actually, honestly though, Kyle would probably really like the Street Profits. Think about it. Yeah. Like he really would. He would resonate with their
100%
lifestyles. He wants to smoke.
Yes. We got. I'm gonna try to.
Good lord.
Pass that out. So we got Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, who are the champions.
Yes,
women's tag team champions.
Yep.
Versus the Riot Squad of Ruby Wyatt and Liv Morgan. Kyle, who do you have? And give me a reason.
So what are my options again?
They're
hard to.
So you got Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler.
They're the
versus,
champions.
Who are the champions? Versus Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan.
I'm gonna take Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan
There
because I always love an underdog story.
I mean, technically they are
Yeah,
underdogs,
they are the underdogs, so, yeah.
I don't see it happening, though, unfortunately.
No.
I don't think any of the tag titles change hands, quite frankly.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
All right, so we got Jeff Hardy defending the Intercontinental Championship against AJ Styles and Sami Zayn in a triple threat ladder match.
This match is going to steal the show.
Yeah.
This is going to be phenomenal, and I'm very excited for it.
Sami Zayn.
I was going to say, I have Sami Zayn winning this match, too. I think, honestly, it would make the most sense, quite frankly. He never lost it. He escapes with it, right, where the other two clashed it out. I think Sami Zayn getting the title back would be important, quite frankly. Yeah. I think that he's doing a really great job. I'm glad to see him back. Here's the thing, though. The one thing that SmackDown has done a really nice job of is, look at these three guys that are in this match, right? You got Jeff Hardy, former world champion, AJ, former world champion, Sammy, who, I mean, he's not a former world champion, but is an upper guy, right? You've got three guys in this match who are legitimate bona fide talent, and they're going after the Intercontinental Championship. So that to me is a good sign for SmackDown and the Intercontinental title as a whole, because that's the kind of level of talent that I want to see comparing. No offense, but I don't want to see Apollo Crews fighting for the U.S. title. I'm sure that's probably challenging on this show.
He's on this right now.
But point being is that's the kind of stuff I want to see, though, right? Is these kind of guys, this quality of people challenging for the Intercontinental Championship.
Kyle, do you have any thoughts?
Crews right on my mouth.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Let's give you the running joke in this. That Kyle just goes, that sounds good.
Same thing. Okay.
We have this moveset.
The SmackDown Women's Championship match. We have Bayley, who is the champion, versus Nikki Cross. Yeah, and Bayley. I think Bayley retains pretty easily.
Yeah, I don't even think they even get to a finish. I think Sasha will probably interfere and just attack her or something like that,
or Alexa Bliss or something.
Yeah, like stuff with her. Either way, Bayley's keeping the title. They need to keep the title on Bayley until WrestleMania. Yeah. That is an absolute must at this point. They did the blow off too soon.
Kyle,
what he said.
Okay.
We're talking Michigan later, folks, so if you want to hear Kyle talk in any sort of detail, that'll be in part 2 of this show. So.
Yeah. So we have the singles match for the WWE Universal Championship. Roman Reigns defends, with Paul Heyman, defends against Jey Uso. Obviously, Reigns, I think, retains.
Yeah, it's not even close. I do think, though, that when I saw the result, because I didn't watch SmackDown when he won the number 1 contendership, I'm going, what the hell just happened, right? So I went back and actually revisited what happened, right? And watching what has happened and how it's played out since then, I'm actually really enjoying this, because this is a slow burn for Roman, right? Mm-hmm. And Roman being able to be like, oh, we're still family, but then as soon as Jey turns around, it's like a whole different guy. Yeah. You can see the facial expressions change. You can see it's a different dynamic between Paul and Roman, too. They really tried to make it where Roman is somewhat in charge and Paul is just kind of happy to be there. Mm-hmm. And it's just lending not only the credibility of Paul Heyman being his manager, but also Paul with the mic doing just enough where Roman can just put the exclamation point on a promo, right? Or put just the last little bit on that where Brock doesn't do any talking, right? They're allowing Paul to get over whatever they're trying to get over and get over this new attitude that Roman has, but at the same time are allowing him to voice just a little bit, just so you get a little bit of that, the snippet that you want, where Roman doesn't have to talk for 5 minutes and embarrass himself. He just gets to say the big line and be done with it, and then go out and beat a whole bunch of people up. So that's where it's, for me, they're doing a really nice job with this. I think this match actually has potential to be really, really, really good, to get you to a point where you may actually believe at some point Jey could win the title, and then that's when they snatch it out from him and he beats the crap out of him.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think this definitely is a potential to be a really good match, because both Uso brothers are fantastic.
Yeah. And then our main event, probably for the evening, I'm going to openly assume, is Randy Orton taking on the champion Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship in an ambulance match. Yeah, I didn't know why it's an ambulance match.
So I think, I'm assuming then that Orton wins this because then Drew doesn't have to take a pinfall. I always look, when I look at stipulations like this, that's the first thing I think I go to is who are they trying to protect when they don't have to necessarily lose like that. You know what I mean? Because I do think that if you lose by pinfall or submission, it is much more of a detriment to you, quote unquote, is if you lose in something like this, like a stipulation like this, right? Like if I lose to you in a ladder match, right? It's like, okay, yeah, you got up there faster, but you didn't pin me, right? You didn't beat me, so there's room for interpretation there. I think Orton gets it. I don't think Orton can lose 3 pay-per-views in a row. It makes no sense for him to do that. Yeah. And I think they've given it enough time now where it's like, okay, Let's go with it. There's no U.S. title match announced yet for this?
Not yet.
It goes to show you how important the U.S. title match is. Good Lord.
So why is there a reason why it's an ambulance match, though, and not any other match?
No, because remember, McIntyre got his head kicked off by Orton a couple weeks ago. Remember that? And that whole
he
thing.
came out in an ambulance.
Yes, that's the whole thing. Well, remember, he got taken away in an ambulance, blah, 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 whatever.
Yeah.
They're trying to put Keith Lee in this mix somehow, too, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit right.
What if they have a triple threat ambulance match?
No, that would be terrible. No, get
Keith
Keith Lee out of here, all right? Seriously. I don't care what they did to him. I don't care. It's whatever.
Okay.
Meh. That's what I have to say.
Gotcha. We're on the Matt train.
Yeah, exactly. Is that it? Is that the last match?
That was the match.
That was the last match. All right, so, I'm looking forward to this show, though. There's a lot of potential on this card. I'm sure the U.S. title match is just going to wind up being like Bobby Lashley versus Apollo Crews again, and
probably
make me want to hurt myself. God forbid they put anybody else in that spot. Literally anybody else. But let's just assume that that's the match. I'm assuming Bobby retains then, too. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Real quick, I do want to ask you, though, with this whole retribution angle that has just been dying a slow death, right? Is there any salvaging this thing at this point? Would it help at all if there's like somebody specific in this? Because right now they keep doing like certain people that you can tell very vividly who they are, right? Like you've seen Mia Yim has been one, Dijakovic, you know what I mean? So I think Mojo Rawley was in at one point. Like, is there any saving that faction at all? Like, if like all of a sudden Ciampa's a part of it, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Or like if somebody of note, is there anything you can do? I'm throwing my laptop everywhere.
Yeah, you're just angry.
Is there anything or anybody that they could do to really like get this thing over? Because I got excited for it originally. I was like, all right, new faction. I'm a big fan of factions, and it's just been a total disaster.
I'm gonna say no.
Yeah.
But I do think if anyone could pull it off at this point, even though how awful it is, Ciampa would be probably one of the few people that could pull it off for me. But probably not.
No.
Because even if it was like, if it was like the eights of like TNA where like he's the only one unveiled and he's like, I got my minions, or it's like a Dark Order thing where like only like one person's face and the other one are all masked people or whatever, I'd still be like, it's cool, you just have minions. Like, I'm not like, it's not really a thing.
You're focused on elevating one person instead of 4 or 5.
If you unmasked everybody and it was like Ciampa, Dijakovic, Gargano, and whoever, I'm like, okay, I can get behind that. But if it's going to be one person with people, I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see when they actually finally like do the reveal.
If they ever reveal.
I'm waiting for them just to stop bringing it up altogether. It's just like not a thing anymore.
It's never a thing anymore.
It's just like, shh, don't talk about it. It's fine. It's going to be interesting for sure. So, all right, that's going to be it for part 1. In part 2 of this week's show, we're going to talk Clippers, unfortunately. And we're going to talk a little bit of the Western Conference Finals. We did the Eastern Conference last week. We'll talk a little bit in the West and predict our NBA Finals matchup. And then we're going to talk some Michigan football. We're going to talk some Lions football. This part 2 of the show is where Rob gets upset. So if you want to see that happen, stay tuned. Stay tuned for part 2. Hey guys, the Mouth of Michigan, Ron Gardenhire here. Just reminding you that episode 100 is right around the corner. Myself, the Merc and the Whaleman, we are all extremely excited about it. We appreciate all the support that you've given us over the first 99 episodes. Episode 100 is definitely going to be one that you will remember forever. Thank you so much once again for all the support, and we'll see you for part 2 of this week's episode. And welcome back to part 2 of this week's episode 95-ish. We're right around the corner there from episode 100. Really excited for that. Let's just jump right in here, though. We got a lot of stuff to go over here in part 2. This may be a 3-parter depending on time constraints. Let's jump right into let's talk NBA playoffs here a little bit. Let's start. All right. With what happened, all right? Me and Mike come on the show last week. Kyle, being a slacker, wasn't here, so he's dead to me for this part of the show. No, but we go on the show.
It was actually funny. I was 100%
right.
wrong.
I know, yeah, right? You text me like, wow. And we're like, I know. We're wrong, but we're never like swinging a miss hard. Yeah. Like, we go into this thinking, all right, they're up 3-1. There's no way they lose 3 in a row, right? Even if they go to Game 7, it's fine. They'll close it out, and we're on our way, right? And they absolute choke and poop themselves on national television. So, there's a couple things I need to get off my chest here before we continue to go here. Number 1, okay, I do not want to hear until probably LeBron James retires. Now, I want to preface this by saying, once again, I don't like LeBron James. I respect him as a player. I think he's the best player in the world, but I don't necessarily root for him to win. However, the fact that we have been waiting for this matchup between the Clippers and Lakers the entire year, and we don't even get to see it because the Clippers are so bad in clutch moments with your two prime players, and they put up a total of 27 points between the two of them. I think Kawhi had 14 points in that entire game.
24.
24. Sorry.
Total.
And Paul George had 6 probably because he's total ass. I mean, I'm so infuriated by this notion that anybody is trying to make excuses for this team. You were stacked from the first guy out the bench all the way to the last guy, and you can't beat Denver. You barely got past whatchamacallit. What was the team before this that they played? Who they played before this? Dallas with a healthy Porzingis and a healthy Luka. They probably beat him in the first freaking round. So I don't want to hear ever again that Kawhi is the best player in the world, because he's not. I don't want to hear another thing about Paul George being remotely close to any sort of MVP voting or anything relevant, because he's awful. He's terrible, and he deserves to be the third man on any team. You know who he'd be the second man on? Not even the Detroit Pistons, because you could say Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose are better, more clutch players than Paul George has, especially in the playoffs. Look at the numbers last year. Blake Griffin was going off against the Bucks last year. Paul George is a complete waste of space on that team. Third of all, Doc Rivers should be fired. You hired a guy thinking because he won a championship in Boston that he was going to take this team and he was going to put them on the pedestal and they were going to be instead of the other LA team. And yet they've done nothing besides disappoint for like the past, 8 years. How long has he been there? He's been there a while, right? I mean, he's been there almost a decade. He was a bad general manager. He then traded away all of his best players. And then you think, okay, finally he signs Kawhi. He signs Paul George. You got Pat Beverly. You got all these guys. They're going to go all the way, and they're going to face the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals and give them a fight. And yet they can't get past Denver. It's an absolute ridiculous notion for anybody to say that anybody in this league besides LeBron James is the best player in this league. Which brings me to my second point. Why is Giannis still getting the MVP? Like, could anybody change that, or were the votes already in?
Well, the votes get in a week before the playoffs.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that. Because, don't post any photos of yourself winning the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Get that crap out of here.
Yeah, no, they're submitted the day after the season ends, and they have that 4-day, or normally they have the 4-day breach, and that's when...
if I'm the owner of the Clippers right now, I am pissed. I don't know how Doc Rivers isn't already fired. Legitimately. How are you not? You invest all this money, you go and basically mortgage your future for the next 2 to 3, 4, 5 years to get Kawhi and Paul George together with the team you have built, and you don't even get to the Western Conference Finals. This, to me, is just as bad, if not worse, than this Bucks team not making it, because the Bucks, I can at least make the argument that the Heat are the most complete team in the East, where what happened? Your best quote-unquote players went out there and crapped themselves on national television and let the Denver Nuggets beat the living dog crap out of you for 4 quarters. And it wasn't even close for a good chunk of that game. So, once again, I don't want to hear about Kawhi. I don't want to hear about Paul George. I don't want to hear about the Clippers. They're getting to the point now where they're like Michigan football for me. Until you do it, I don't want to hear about you. And we're going to talk Michigan in a minute, but I'm less upset about that. But point being, what do you guys got? Because I was watching that game, I was pissed. Because I was just like, this is such an not pissed in the sense of you guys are happy because you guys are a Laker fan. But for me, as a guy who doesn't have a horse in this race, I'm pissed because all I've heard is this is going to be the matchup. This is going to be the teams. And we don't even get that because Paul George wants to take up 25 threes, even though he ain't making them, turns the ball over more than anybody I've ever freaking seen, and yet he's somehow getting defended on national television by Reggie Miller and Van Gundy and all these guys. Oh, he was third in MVP voting last year. I don't give a crap, because he's awful in the playoffs. He's absolute dog crap. That's why Oklahoma City was just as good without him. Mm-hmm. Oh, boy.
Okay, so I'll go next.
Good Lord.
First, I'm going to congratulate Kyle, because when we were doing these predictions, he's the only person
that's true.
who said, no, the Miami Heat are going to beat the Bucks.
Yeah, that's true.
Me and Rob vetoed you on that.
I did. We did. That's true.
I said
it was a good notion, but we are also like, ain't having it.
I was like, Bucks probably take it in 7.
Yep.
So since Kyle's here for the first time since that happened, I will congratulate Kyle for getting that right.
Yep.
I think he got all of them but the Nuggets in the final four.
I think you did, yeah. I think you were betting 1,000 at one point.
Yeah, you were betting 1,000 for a really long time.
Yeah.
So that was really good by you.
Yep.
I agree with every point that you made. I think the big problem with the Clippers, The big problem with the Clippers is I don't think they have the vocal leader on the team.
No.
When Kawhi is your star player and he doesn't say anything, I think that's where your big eruption happens. Because I think even with AD on the team also, who's also a very big vocal point, I think having LeBron there in a bubble type setting, where I think in a normal setting, I think the Clippers actually more fine because the crowd kind of
helps,
amps you up.
Right.
You know, you don't need
Right.
Kawhi to really be like, guys, we got this,
Right.
like, because you have the crowd there.
Right.
But in this bubble setting, you really need that guy, like a LeBron who's like, listen, guys, like,
Well,
we
and-
got this, we can get through this, we're down
Yeah.
1-0 in both series that
Yep.
you were in, and it's like, we just had to stick our heads in, and we know what we can do, and get us through this.
Well, and two, right,
it's-
to your point, is having that killer mentality, right? It's the same problem with the Lions, and we're going to talk about that in a minute as well, is having your opponent on the ropes
Yeah.
and going for the kill. And not, you know what I mean? I think the Clippers, in a lot of aspects, both series that they had, both with Dallas and with Denver, I never saw any sense of urgency out of that team. Never once. Not any point in time. That Lakers, when they lost the first game to the Portland, right? I was like, okay, you know, we have a little bit of a series. And then you saw them go out there for the next 3 games. You know, the fourth game not counting because, you know, Lillard, whatever. But, like, the next 3 games, go out and utterly shoot the lights out into a point where you're like, there's no way anybody is touching this, right? Is having the wherewithal to go, hey, our window's small. We have the best team. There's no dinking around. It's the same problem with the Bucks. The Bucks did it too. The Bucks never have had that killer mentality where they just went, we got to go for the jugular.
I think, and I'll throw this out after I
Yeah.
say this point, is I think everyone kind of hates on LeBron for not having that killer instinct, but I think LeBron has a different killer instinct than like a Jordan or like a Kawhi.
Yeah.
You would think, like in like the Toronto series where he would just shoot it out. I think LeBron's killer instinct is, you know, if we hit Game 7, I'm going to go in this ultra. I'll trust my teammates. I'll do whatever it takes to kind of win. And I think that's his killer mentality is I'm not going to shoot 45 times because if I'm only going to make 6, then those 31 makes I'm not making. You know what I mean? It's his killer mentality is I'm going to get everyone involved and we're going to do everything we can to win.
Before we get to Kyle, I'm going to put this right out here right now too. Is if somehow Denver makes the upset of the century and beats this Lakers team, I'm going to go just as hard on LeBron as I am on anybody else too. Like let's not get it twisted here. The Lakers now have no excuse not to win this championship.
I agree with that. I'm very interested to see because if Denver does win, does the narrative shift to maybe it was the bubble the whole time? And I say that only because you would think, all right, so the 3 hypothetical best teams were Lakers, Clippers, Bucks.
Right.
If 2 of them are eliminated in the second round and the third one's eliminated before the finals, does anything
just
go
like
into
everything
it? It's
was
like
crazy?
everything just got messed up
I
because
would
it was
say-
the bubble. I don't believe so. I think
Yeah.
if you're the best team, you're still going to win.
Right.
Like I think the Lakers are still going to win no matter
Yes,
what,
I agree with
even
you.
if you're in a bubble or not in a bubble.
Yep.
But I think there's a very narrative that could happen if Denver does make it, where it's like if it's Denver Heat or Denver Boston, and it's just like that's a weird that would never happen with fans
for sure, and that is definitely a case. But be prepared now because unless LeBron breaks his leg in game two, right? And honestly, and I'm not even going to necessarily blame LeBron, but I will blame the Lakers team because you have a very good basketball team on the court there. So be prepared. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if it does. If you're a Lakers fan, you're like, see, you're talking respect about my team. They get upset too. I'm just going to go just as hard. Your point now, Kyle. Talk to me about this Clippers team. What do you got? Like, what was your instant reaction? Because mine was blind rage at the fact that all we've been talking about is this series, and I don't even get to see it now because of 2 guys who just went. And then they have the gall. Sorry, I don't want to. I'll get to you in a second. The gall to go out and say, "Well, we never came out and said this was a make or break season." How dare you go out and say that? How dare you? At least when the Heat did that and they said we're going to win 7, and then they got their ass kicked by Dallas, they at least went, you know what? Yeah, we look like idiots, and they look like a fool with their pants down. Don't you dare come out and tell me, oh, this isn't a make or break here. What was it then? Holy mother of Lord! All right. Continue. Go ahead.
All right. So I'm gonna go through a couple points here. First, I'm gonna start with Doc Rivers. How he should just be fired because
I immediately, as you're off the court, if I'm Steve Ballmer, you're fired. I don't even want to hear the excuse. You're fired.
Because in the last 7 seasons, 5 of those seasons they've been up in a playoff series and they've lost a series.
Yep.
And that's like astonishing to me.
Yep.
Because with like
they've never made it out of the second round.
Yeah.
With Doc Rivers.
Yeah. Because with the caliber of coach you have supposedly had Doc Rivers, the teams you've had, and you still have to blow five leads in a series. Like, what are you doing? Especially now you have Kawhi. You have
here's the thing. Look at all the stars they've had, right? They had Chris Paul, a young, healthy Blake Griffin, and a good DeAndre Jordan, right? Where DeAndre Jordan was legitimately effective as a rim protector, right? For multiple seasons. Chris Paul was still young. He wasn't injury prone like he was. They couldn't get it done. So they trade all those guys away, and then they sign the quote-unquote biggest star in the league, Kawhi. They land the biggest fish. They get a great running partner. I'm going to put that in freaking air quotes. With Paul George, you have a very deep team. You get the sixth man of the year coming off the bench. And what do? You go out there and lay an egg. At some point, coaching's got to be involved. It is what it is. Right? Sorry, didn't mean to cut you out, but good lord.
And going off what Michael said with there's no kind of verbal leader on the team. Like, as you look at someone like the Lakers, I think LeBron has an impact more than just his play.
Well, let's take the Lakers out of it for a second. Look at other teams, right? Look at the Heat, right? Look at the Heat for a second, right? Jimmy Butler is definitely a vocal leader on that team, right? And more so, you have a coach in Eric Spoelstra who is willing to go out there and be like, all right, timeout, and you could tell when a timeout happens where they're interviewing him and he's just sitting there, he's just like, I'm not listening to you at all because I'm going to go level somebody. Or even a guy like Andre Iguodala being able to be like, hey, what the hell? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. No accountability at all by this Clippers team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you have a team that's kind of like stacked as ever, is deep in the bench, and when, let's say, Paul George, as we've seen plenty of times in the playoffs, he's not exactly
PG, average 12 points in the playoffs.
Yeah, so when you're somewhere like Paul George, you're looking for a Kawhi or a Lou Will to step up, but then when Lou Will doesn't step up, when Kawhi doesn't step up, nobody's talking to each other. You have Doc doing whatever he's doing,
sitting there.
That's how you blow 3-1 leads. And credit to the Nuggets, they played really well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this Nuggets team's a very good basketball team, no doubt about it. But let's be real here. 3-1, I don't even care if you get to Game 6, Game 7. You really shouldn't have been there at the end of the day. If this was almost any other team, you probably would have lost in 6.
This is why the entire time I thought the Lakers would beat the Clippers, is because I thought outside of Kawhi and Paul George, I didn't think you'd get as much contribution from... I thought you'd get a little from Lou Williams too, but like the Montrezl Harrells, the Pat Bevs, they're not going to contribute offensively at all. Yeah. And so I looked at the Lakers, and now I was not a big Rondo fan, and Rondo's been playing phenomenal through this run, so I'm actually very excited about that too. But you're getting like Kuzma, Alex Caruso, Cartavius Pope, Danny Green. Randomly, these guys will just go, I'm going to hit 4 threes in a row right here. Yeah. Or like, I'm going to hit 3 threes. Or I'm going to make 12 in a row. And it's just like, where's his contribution? Like, it was all over the board. And that's why I always thought they would have the edge over. And that's why I still think they have the edge.
It was just an epic disaster. All right, real quick, let's talk Lakers Nuggets. Though, right? Lakers are up 1-0 right now. And in a really not a close game. The score kind of showed it as one. But, I mean, they kind of pulled away for a while there. What do you got this series in? I mean, I said Lakers in 5. You said Lakers in 6. I still think it's 5.
I'm more avenged to say 5. I wouldn't be. I don't want to see. I hate when I say it's 5 because if it goes 6, everyone goes, "Oh yeah, what the heck happened to Lakers?" Yeah, so like, I always take the benefit. Yeah. I go 6 because I think that's at most the latest it will go.
Yeah. I think it's 5.
But I could say it's 5 also.
I think they go down probably 2-0.
2-0, 3-0. They win 1. It's like, here we go. And then Lakers are like, no.
I just don't think they have enough. I don't think that they're not ready. I still think, and we talked about this in the beginning, Denver is a team that I don't think is there yet. I think that's the thing. I think Jokic's been playing off his mind, Marine's playing off his mind. You have pieces there. But do you have enough pieces? And do you have that one guy outside of your big stars to go out there and have a game where you have his 15 points, right? They don't have that guy. Rondo right now is, when Rondo puts up 15, you're like, the Lakers are going to win this game. Yeah. Just because of that,
when
right?
He had Kuzma
right, exactly. And then you're just like, well, dude, like, even if, okay, LeBron's going to have his 25, AD's going to have his 25, okay, cool. But now these other 3 guys have 60 together. Between the two, you're like, well, shit, who do we got? Well, who do you got and how many games?
Oh, well, I'm going to take the Lakers.
That'd be funny. He's like, actually, I'm going to take Denver here.
I can't. I'm going to take them in 5, mainly because, like, when I think about it, going off what you said, like, the main stars are going to have their big points.
Yeah, they're going to have their games, right.
Yeah, they're going to have their games, but I'm going to look at, like, who in the Nuggets is going to take over. Like, is Michael Porter Jr. going to put up 25?
Is Paul Millsap going to do it? We saw how that worked out.
I think that the Lakers' interior, especially their big men defense, is really underrated. You got JaVale and Dwight Howard down low.
Dwight Howard's been playing really well.
JaVale McGee might as well well just sit the bench. He's been
Might as
awful.
well.
He's been awful.
But,
He's been terrible.
yeah.
Dwight Howard though has been what JaVale McGee what they wanted him to be for sure.
So I think their defensive presence is going to kind of take
Lord.
over the series, and
Gross.
and it's going to just take them to the finals.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see. Next week we'll probably be able to preview the finals more than likely, depending on how these things go. Hopefully,
I have a positive way of thinking about that.
Yeah.
Kyle, so you have the Heat.
you get the Heat.
Yeah.
Okay, because
I do too. Yeah, I do too. Honestly, I want to see the Heat because I think Boston will choke in that. No offense.
I think the Lakers.
I don't think Jason Tatum's there.
I think the Lakers get a sweep if it's Boston. So
Yeah.
I want the Heat there to make it like 5 or 6.
Yeah, because I think the Heat team. That's the only team right now. I think Boston, while they have, I think maybe a deeper bench. I think they have more pieces that you could point to and go, that guy could go off. This
They
guy could go off.
have way more average players, but the top half of the Heat are just
Well, not that. I'm looking at Spoelstra. I like Brad Stevens. Don't get me wrong, but Spoelstra, man, he's fiery, dude, and I'm all about it. I'm all about a coach that shows some emotion and gets angry and gets a little pissed off at his players when they're not executing correctly. Like, Jimmy Butler had so many turnovers in that game 7 or that game 6 where he was like, dude, what the hell? Like, and he was like getting on him and like some of that. Like, I'm all about a coach who's willing to take his best player and be like, hey, get your head out of your ass and let's go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm excited. I really hope it's that because I think Jason Tatum will poop himself in the finals. He almost did against Toronto, for being fair. So, yeah, I don't have any confidence in that. But, all right, let's shift our focus now to Michigan football here. It's officially coming back. We got the Big Ten. We're getting Big Ten football back. Kyle's excited. It's this is his part of the show where he gets to drive. Talk to me, Kyle, about Joe Milton. He wins the quarterback battle. McCaffrey transfers out. This once again goes to my point why you should have started McCaffrey last year to see what you had, because we all know what Shea Patterson was, dog crap. So Joe Milton, what's he about? What am I going to see out of this Michigan offense this year?
So this year, Michigan offense, you do not have a
Look at that
returning.
confidence. Look at that confidence. He sets up.
Yeah,
He gets
you
all
do not
excited.
have a returning Nico Collins. You do have a Jalen Mayfield coming back though, so that's pretty good. But you do have to replace.
Sure.
You do have to replace 4 other starting O-linemen, so I don't know how they're going to do that and how that's going to work out. But with Joe Milton, I think you're going to find, as we talked about earlier, a Cam Newton-esque. That's what you're looking for, a Cam Newton-esque player. He's got the height, he's got the weight, and he can, as from what I've seen, he knows when to throw it and when to run it, if you know what I mean. He knows when it's a good decision to leave the pocket, but he likes staying in the pocket.
You're such an asshole, I swear to God. Hold on, though. I do want to say this, though, because I think you make a good point there, though. We haven't seen him play, right? That's number one, right? So that's nerve-wracking. Before we get to your point, Mike, I do want to say this. If Michigan can get to a point where Ohio State is with their quarterbacks, and this is what I mean by this, and this has been a criticism we've had on Ohio State quarterbacks, which is why I think some of their translation to the NFL has been difficult, because Ohio State's offense is very much one read and then go. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Now, they've had the speed where it's like, well, maybe they only need to make one read and they're open, right? Mm-hmm. But what we saw let's go all the way back to like the Lloyd Carr's days with Troy Smith, right? And those kind of guys where, okay, read, slant's not there, deep route's not there, I'm gone, right? Haskins was really the first guy, but even that, let's hand off to Dobbins 12 times. But so Justin Fields, right? Similar thing, right? Reed, okay, he's got the versatility to leave and go, right? So if they can get Joe to that point, which is basically what Auburn did with Cam, where it was, hey, we got anything open downfield? One Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. Okay, I'm taking it and I'm off and running, right? So I do expect a lot of that to be the case for them, and I think that will be the biggest source of success for Milton is if they can get him into that kind of scenario. What were you going to say?
Now, so here's my question I have with this optimism Kyle has.
You're such a jerk.
Well, because I'm not very optimistic. But I think it's more the schedule layout. Than
we're going to go over that in a second, too, for sure.
What's the receiving core look like? Like the starting 3?
Because Black's gone.
Yeah, because Tyreek Black's gone. You said Nico Collins isn't returning, even though last I heard he was like.
Well, they can't. Like him and Ambry Thomas are the ones who opted out, but they still have a chance.
They can opt back in because their right tackle just opted back in. Right?
Yeah. I think there's a deadline. I don't know for sure when that is, but they can.
TikTok.
Yeah.
But
hello.
So assuming Nico Collins isn't back and you lose Tyreek Black, Donovan Peoples is gone in the draft or whatever.
So
who do you 3 or 4 whatever?
So what you're expecting to start is you're gonna have Ronnie Bell starting as your kind of main receiver. You're gonna have Giles Jackson in the slot, and then Cornelius Johnson, who didn't play much. You have AJ Henning, I think his name is. I don't know. He's kind of their top tier freshman that's coming in this year. So that's going to be.
Is Cornelius a big receiver, or is he more like a Giles Jackson, like small and shifty receiver?
He's kind of in the middle of like a Nico Collins and Giles Jackson. He's
like
taller,
a 6'1". Like
he's taller, but he's quick.
Okay.
Who's in the backfield this year for him?
You're going to have Charbonnet and Haskins. Those are your two. You kind of saw them both play together. And then you have Chris Evans coming back.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you about Chris Evans because I didn't know if he was actually officially back.
Now this defense, how is this? So how many people did we lost? What, like 4 or 5 in the draft last year or something? So what's the defense looking like?
So obviously, I think their biggest loss will be Ambry Thomas. I think he was their one corner who actually had experience, and there's a lot of freshmen who are coming in, a lot of guys who haven't as much experience. You got Dax Hill in the safety. He's had a good amount of experience for how young he was last year. You got Josh Ross and Cam McGrone coming back. We saw kind of Cam McGrone emerge after Josh Ross got hurt last year, so they'll be kind of a linebacking duo to watch for.
Linebacker.
And on the D line, you have obviously you have Hutchinson, you have Kwity Paye who decided to come back this year, and then for the D line you have Donovan Jeter. He's going to be a senior, and on that you had Chris Hinton who was a freshman last year. He was really.
There's got to be a Glasgow somewhere, right?
There's not a Glasgow on this team anymore.
12, 15 years later.
Okay, so what would you, on a scale of like 1 to 10, 10 being like the greatest thing since sliced bread, 1 being like god awful, what would you rank the defense? Yeah, what would you rank the defense?
The defense, I'd probably
how it looks
before the season started. I'd probably rate it a 6.
Because I'm gonna ask you like 4 games in, and if it changes.
Just because I don't know how they're gonna run this defense with the people they lost.
Yeah.
And so I'm just gonna say 6 for now, but it could be better.
Offense. On potential, because you don't know anything really.
Right.
You don't know how the quarterback plays.
And honestly, sometimes honestly, that may be okay. Like, especially right now, we went into last year thinking we know what this Michigan offense is going to somewhat look like, right? I know they got Josh Gaddis, whatever, right? But you knew what Shea Patterson was, and it wasn't great. Yeah. So it's like, at least now, which was my point last year, was because you don't know what you have. Throw him out there. And this is the perfect time to throw Milton out there. Because if he plays just okay, plays good, not great, right? He ain't going to leave, number one. Yeah. So he's going to come out next year, right? We got a senior quarterback, been in the system for now 2 years. Let's go. You know what I mean? And you've got a potential guy. But sorry, to cut you off, what do you think the number is on that?
I'm going to say 6 as well. I probably would go 7, but because who they're going to have to play to start the season.
Yeah, that's also.
I think it's going to be a big determining factor
for sure.
If they can either overcome that and kind of build on that, or kind of fall apart after week 1 playing.
For sure.
Minnesota.
Yeah. So I mean, let's look at the schedule just a little bit here. They open up with Minnesota, and then they're at Minnesota, right? And then they're home against Michigan State, right? Those are the first 2 games, right? You got it ready?
No, not really. But
okay, can you pull that up for me real fast?
Yeah.
But looking at these first 2 games, right, I think that's going to be a pivotal part of your season to know what the hell this team is going to look like. Yeah. Minnesota's coming off a really good year last year. They were a team when before this whole COVID thing hit, we looked at it as that's a trap game for Michigan in a lot of aspects, right? Going in thinking you probably could win that game, but you could just as viably lose it as well.
Oh, yeah.
I think Michigan State you're still going to beat because as many questions as Michigan has, you have just as many, if not more. I don't even know who's the quarterback for Michigan State right now.
Rocky Lombardi.
Is it still? Really?
That's what I heard.
So, like, you got not only that, new coach, new systems. Yeah. Stuff's going to take some time, right? It is what it is. You still have a lot of the D'Antonio leftovers there. So, there's going to be some issues there. You got the schedule pulled up?
Yeah.
Okay, give me the schedule here real quick.
Yeah. So, we already talked about Minnesota and Michigan State.
Yeah.
Week 3, you have at Indiana.
Okay.
Week 4, at home against Wisconsin.
Okay.
And then you got Rutgers after that.
Rutgers.
And then you got home Penn State. And then at Maryland. No, at home. No, yeah, at home against Maryland, I think. And then
is it at or home? You gotta.
No,
he said at home.
It's at home. These both are at home, I think.
Yeah, because you're home against Michigan State. So if you're at the bottom, they're at home.
Yeah. So these are both the bottom. So
you're
at home against Maryland, and then away against Ohio State.
Good Lord. All right. So I mean, look at this game. I mean, Minnesota, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, Ohio State, and I'll throw Michigan State in there just as a respect thing because it's a rivalry. I mean, those are 6 games that theoretically could be all be toss-ups. I think you beat Indiana. I think obviously you beat Rutgers, but this is not an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination, right? And I don't think that this is going to come down to necessarily a beat Ohio State thing. But at the same time, if you are Michigan and you are not in the national championship contention like Ohio State, Clemson, some of these other teams are, this is perfect because you're going to see exactly what you have out of everybody real quick, right? So you're going to know if Joe Milton is going to be the guy or if he's just going to be a guy. You're going to know that within the first 4 weeks of the season, like Mike said. So if you're a Michigan fan, I would be tentatively excited because, once again, you're getting a new guy under center. This team is going to go as Joe Milton goes. Let's be real, right? We haven't had a solid quarterback since Chad Henne, really. So until we see better quarterback play, Michigan will always be stuck in this sort of rut, right? Joe Milton comes out, sets the world on fire, we got a team, right? And we're rolling, and that's going to be the big thing. Real quick, as we end this show, we only got a couple minutes here. I don't really want to go to part 3. I don't got the energy or the time or the want to do this right quick. What's the threshold for you, Mike, real fast on the Lions? Is it 0-4, and then everyone gets fired week 5? I hate firing a coach mid-season because I know that means your whole season's basically gone at that point. My biggest concern is that say they somehow win one of these next 3 games, right? For instance, they're 1-3 going into the bye. That's where the schedule really lightens up. Like the next 5 games are all pretty winnable football games. They somehow get to 9-7, miss the playoffs, and everyone keeps their job. Is that worst case scenario for you?
That's what I said was worst case scenario.
So
going into the season.
I'm very concerned that that's what's going to wind up happening, where we're going to show progress, but there's no progress. I am beyond livid at this point.
I told you, because going 3-12-1, if they go 7-9 or 8-8, that's like, hey, we got 5 games better. Yeah. We can only get better now, right? Yeah. And they keep their job. That was my big concern. I always thought this season should be playoffs or you're fired. Yeah. But I think it's going to turn into, if you're 8-8, 9-7, but you just miss, you're like the 8 seed or something. You're like, we were almost there. We only needed like one more game. A lot of people were hurt early. Blah 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 blah, and then they keep their job for another year, and it's just going to prolong because I don't think they're the right people for it. Yeah. So it's just going to keep prolonging but we're going to eventually have to fire you because you're not the right
I just want to see some sense of urgency out of this freaking team, out of this coaching staff, right? Like Patricia's walking around like his ass ain't on fire, but let's be real here. We're dropping stuff everywhere. All excited.
We're all angry.
I'm at a point now where I'm like, dude, your job is like on the line. Now, if they go out and obviously if you guys are going to hear this after the Green Bay game, but I'm going to say they go out in Green Bay and they get blown out, I'm done. Like I'm already done. Let me be clear. But the sad part is that if they beat Green Bay today, their season kind of gets put back on track a little bit. You know what I mean? Or if they somehow upset Arizona or upset the Saints or whatever, then it kind of gets put back a little bit. But the defense has made, and I tried so hard to talk myself into it, that finally we were going to have some sort of relative, jump in, performance, and it's the same exact shit. Yeah. The exact same stuff. I'm out of my mind bananas pissed about this thing. We're going to talk about it more in the next couple weeks because as the season kind of unveils a little bit, I'm going to reserve some things. But at the moment, tick, mother effing talk. That's all I got to say. Okay. All right, that's going to be it for this week's show. He's the Whaleman. He's Merckson on the Mouth, Michigan. We will see you guys, as always, next time.